Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to see you again in a brand new episode, continuing the emotional story of LyTuDiep and CEO James. As you may remember from the previous episode, Diep had to face a serious illness, a journey filled with tears, fear, and faith. Fortunately, after months of treatment in a foreign land, she finally overcame the illness and returned home, safely, and in the loving arms of James. It seemed like everything had finally settled down. But as Diep comes back, new surprises begin to unfold, in her work, her life, and even in the relationship between the two of them. Will happiness truly smile upon them after all the storms? And how will CEO James, that strong, determined man, handle the sudden turning point in his career? Let's find out together in today's episode, and see what new twists await in the story of Diep and James. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment to support this couple, and support the channel as well. Morning sunlight gently filtered through the thin white curtain, casting soft golden streaks across the tiled floor. In the small kitchen, the quiet rhythm of a knife against the cutting board mingled with the bubbling sound of boiling water and the warm scent of coffee and toasted bread. James still kept that habit, making breakfast himself for his daughter every morning, no matter how busy he was. He believed that every new day should begin with love and peace. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, his movements slow and careful. Each time he poured a glass of milk for little Nee, he added a spoon of honey, just the way she liked it, gently sweet. Sunlight touched his face, casting soft shadows across the neat dining table, where two small plates were already set. From the bedroom came the sound of tiny footsteps, followed by a sleepy, cheerful voice. "Daddy, are we having breakfast in town again today?" Little Nee ran over, hugging his leg, her messy hair falling over bright, sleepy eyes. James bent down, patting her head with a tender smile. "Not today, sweetheart. We'll have breakfast here at home. Then I'll take you to school." "Okay," she chirped. The kitchen suddenly felt warmer. Her laughter, the clinking of spoons, and James's gentle questions about her friends and class, all blended into a soft morning melody. Outside, the sunlight grew brighter, and the leaves shimmered in the light breeze. After breakfast, James helped his daughter put on her backpack, tied her shoelaces, and walked her to the car. The small road outside was still covered in morning mist, the green trees leaning over the quiet street. He drove slowly so she could enjoy the view, shopkeepers opening their doors, vendors calling out, the smell of steamed buns and fresh coffee drifting through the air. When they arrived at the school gate, Nee turned back, waving brightly. "Daddy, have a good day at work." James smiled and nodded softly. He stood there watching until her small figure disappeared among the crowd of students. A quiet peace and deep gratitude filled his heart. After everything they'd been through, his little family was still together. Then, the phone rang. He glanced at the screen. It was David, his close associate at the company. "James, the urgent meeting's about to start. Everyone's waiting for you." He checked his watch, smiling lightly. "I'll be there in about 20 minutes. On my way." Hanging up, James leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. Years in the business world had taught him that nothing ever came easily. Pressure, responsibility, unfinished projects, they were like unseen tides constantly rising. But when he thought of Diep, his wife, who had just survived a terrible illness, and of Nee, his little girl waiting for him every evening, all weariness faded away. He started the engine. The sunlight glinted in the rearview mirror, lighting up his calm, mature face, the face of a man who had endured much, yet carried a heart full of love. No matter how demanding life became, James always believed that the most precious thing he had wasn't wealth or success, it was the smile of the two women waiting for him at home. And that love, steady, pure, and enduring, was the strength that kept him moving forward, with peace in his heart and faith in tomorrow. On his way back after the meeting, James didn't rush straight home. The sunset spread its golden glow along the quiet suburban road. Trees on both sides swayed gently in the evening breeze, their leaves falling softly onto the damp earth. In the distance, the last rays of daylight brushed across old tiled roofs, bathing the scene in a calm, nostalgic light. The car stopped before a small house nestled on a hillside, a place James had visited years ago, one filled with painful memories. Now, it was the temporary home of John, a man who had once made grave mistakes, who had hurt James deeply, but who was now trying to start anew. The rusty iron gate creaked open, breaking the silence. John was sweeping the yard, his thin figure bent slightly, skin darkened by sun. His old shirt was frayed at the shoulders, and his hair, now flecked with gray, moved lightly in the breeze. Yet in his eyes, there was no longer arrogance or defiance, only quiet humility. Seeing James step out of the car, John froze for a moment before smiling softly. "You're here," he said. "I've been fixing up this place. It's not much, but it'll do." James walked closer, his eyes pausing on the cracked walls and the crooked porch propped up by a single wooden beam. He sat down on an old chair by the doorway, resting his hands on his knees. His voice was calm, steady, but carried weight. "I came for 2 reasons. First, I wanted to ask, are you comfortable living here?" John looked up, a bit surprised, then nodded slowly. "It's peaceful. The people here are kind, they help me out. Some bring me vegetables, eggs. I never thought I could live quietly again after everything I did." James nodded, his gaze drifting toward the small garden behind the house. The grapefruit trees he had planted years ago were still there, thin and scarred, yet blooming with small white flowers, their scent floating gently in the air. After a brief silence, his voice grew lower, sharper. "Second, I heard you caused some trouble at the tavern in the village?" The air grew tense. John set the broom aside, his hands tightening. His voice was hoarse. "I didn't start a fight. They were some of my old workers, the ones I laid off. They were drunk, shouting, saying awful things. I didn't respond. I just sat there and left. But I know. I'm paying for what I've done." James said nothing for a long time. The fading sunlight cast a golden hue across his face, his eyes deep and reflective, not angry, but filled with quiet understanding. Finally, he nodded. "I see. You can stay here, but not for free. I have a flock of chickens and a grapefruit garden behind my house. Take care of them for me. In return, I'll send you some wood and materials so you can fix the roof and the windows. Deal?" John's eyes widened. His voice trembled. "You'd still help me? After what I did, after betraying your trust, ruining everything you built, and you still reach out like this? I don't deserve it." James smiled faintly, a kind, yet sorrowful smile. He placed a hand on John's shoulder and spoke gently. "You're changing, and that's what matters. Everyone makes mistakes. What's important is to make them right. The past is over, don't let it bind your present. This house, consider it your new beginning." A soft breeze passed through, carrying the scent of grapefruit blossoms and distant wood smoke. The 2 men sat quietly, watching the sun sink behind the bamboo grove. No words, only the sound of crickets and the whisper of wind through the old roof, like the slow, steady breath of peace returning to a place once filled with storms. John bowed his head low, voice trembling. "Thank you for giving me a second chance. I won't let you down." James stood, looking around the small house once more. In the golden light of dusk, his shadow stretched long across the dirt road, calm, firm, resolute. He smiled softly. Start small. Feed the chickens. Water the trees. Fix the house. You'll see, life still has a place for you. That afternoon, the wind from the distant fields carried with it the scent of dry grass and fresh earth, sweeping away the lingering heat of midday. James and John were still sitting on the porch, their earlier conversation ending on a rare note of understanding between two men who had once stood on opposite sides. The air was calm, only the faint sounds of chickens clucking and the rustle of wind against the old roof filled the quiet. Suddenly, from the dirt path in front of the house, a woman appeared. She was in her 60s, thin and frail, her face etched with deep lines, yet her eyes carried a steady determination. Leaning on a bamboo cane, she walked slowly but firmly, every step deliberate. James and John both stood. As she came closer, her trembling voice broke the stillness. "Excuse me, may I ask, is Ms. Diep here?" James froze for a brief moment, surprise flickering in his eyes. He replied politely, his tone soft. "Ma'am, Diep has been ill. She's at my house now with little Nee. May I ask, who are you?" The woman hesitated for a few seconds before answering, her voice catching in her throat. "I'm Nee's grandmother. I've come to take her home." Silence fell. John glanced at James, while James stood motionless for a moment before nodding and inviting her inside. His breathing was steady, but his mind was a storm of thoughts. He poured her a glass of water, set it gently on the wooden table, and spoke slowly. "Ma'am, I understand your feelings. But perhaps you don't know, years ago, Diep legally adopted me. At that time, your family could not be contacted, and no one had claimed the child. Diep raised her from infancy, cared for her meals, her sleep, her every need. Now, Nee is in school, a good, kind girl who loves Diep as her own mother." The old woman sat quietly, her trembling hands gripping the edge of her blouse. After a long pause, she said hoarsely, "I didn't know. I lost contact with my son years ago. When I learned of his death, I found out he had a child. I only wished to bring her home, to light incense for her father, to keep the family bloodline together." James listened, his expression softening. He could hear the sorrow behind her words, the pain of a mother who had lost her son, clinging to one final hope in her granddaughter. He replied calmly, his tone gentle but steady. "I understand, ma'am. If you truly wish to bring her home, neither Diep nor I will stand in your way. But please, allow Diep and me to talk first. The child is old enough to understand, and she has the right to express what she wants." The old woman lowered her head and sighed, a long, weary sigh that seemed to release the weight of years. "I just want her to be happy, no matter who she lives with." John, who had remained silent until then, finally spoke. His voice was low, rough, but sincere. "I think the girl should decide for herself, ma'am. She's grown, and she's wise beyond her years. I've seen how she talks about Ms. Diep, the look in her eyes. It's no different from a child talking about her real mother." The old woman nodded, tears shimmering in her eyes. She whispered softly, almost to herself. "Perhaps I came too late." James gently placed his hand on the table, his eyes kind and steady. "It's never too late, ma'am. Family isn't measured by time, but by the heart. I promise, tomorrow or the next day, Diep, Nee, and I will come visit you. The local authorities can be present, and everything will be decided based on what Nee truly wants. No matter the outcome, I believe we all want what's best for her." The old woman reached out and clasped James's hand, her rough, calloused palm warm with gratitude. "Thank you, truly, thank you. I never imagined, after all these years, that there'd still be good people like you beside my granddaughter." James smiled softly, his expression as gentle as the fading sunlight outside. "I'm just doing what's right, ma'am. Sometimes, we can't choose where we're born, but we can choose where we are loved." The old woman fell silent, her eyes glistening. John stood nearby, his heart swelling with a quiet, indescribable emotion, a mixture of sorrow and admiration for the simple, profound kindness unfolding before him. The evening breeze stirred again, shaking loose a few white grapefruit blossoms that drifted across the porch. In the fading twilight, three people, from three generations, three different lives, sat beneath one old roof, speaking with the honesty and warmth only the heart can hold. Outside, the sun had vanished behind the bamboo grove. But somewhere within them, another kind of light, softer, warmer, had just begun to shine. That afternoon, as the sun dipped toward the western horizon, James drove home. The narrow road shimmered under the last pale gold of the day, quiet and still, much like his own heart at that moment. The gate creaked softly as he pushed it open. Inside the small house, the faint sound of a damp cloth wiping the table mingled with the lingering scent of medicine in the air. Diep was standing by the dining table, a wet towel in her hand, carefully wiping away each speck of dust. Her face was still pale, but there was calmness in her eyes. James set his briefcase on a chair and spoke gently, though his voice carried a trace of concern. "You shouldn't be doing this. You're not fully recovered yet." Diep turned, smiling faintly. "It's all right. I feel much better now. Lying around all day makes me restless." James frowned slightly. He stepped closer, gently took the towel from her hand, and placed it on the table. His tone was firm but caring. "You need to rest. Don't push yourself. If you relapse, it'll be much harder the second time." Diep stayed quiet, her gaze softening. She knew he was right, but it was hard to stay idle when she'd spent her whole life caring for others. James helped her sit down, poured a glass of warm water, and placed it in front of her. "Rest a bit," he said softly. "There's something I need to tell you." She looked up, curiosity flickering in her tired eyes. James took a deep breath, then slowly recounted what had happened earlier that day, the visit from Nee's grandmother, her wish to take the child home, and the promise he had made, that Nee would be allowed to decide for herself, in the presence of local authorities. When he finished, silence filled the room. The last rays of sunlight streamed through the window, glinting in Diep's eyes, eyes that now shimmered with emotion she could barely hold back. She clasped her hands tightly and spoke in a trembling voice. "I love Nee like my own daughter. From the day I brought her home, every meal, every sleepless night, every fever, I've cared for her as if she were my own flesh and blood. But if she truly wants to go with her grandmother, I can't stop her. As long as she's happy, that's enough for me. And if she chooses to stay, I'll protect her, no matter what it costs." Her voice faltered at the last words. James quietly sat beside her and took her hand, a firm, steady, yet gentle hold. He looked at her, his eyes warm and steady like the fading sunlight outside. "I feel the same. What matters most is her happiness. It doesn't matter where she lives, only that she's loved sincerely. We don't hold on to her out of fear of losing her, but because we want her to have a choice. That's what real love is." Diep looked up, her eyes red but her lips curved in a fragile smile. She leaned her head on his shoulder, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, finding peace in its quiet strength. Outside, the evening light faded, leaving only a soft, golden glow drifting through the window. Neither of them spoke again. The room settled into a tender stillness, filled with love, forgiveness, and a shared worry for an innocent child, little Nee, the girl who had brought both joy and trials into their lives. And somewhere within that dimming light, James knew that tomorrow would bring a decision, one not easily made, but one that must come from the heart. Late in the afternoon, the last rays of sunlight stretched across the hillside, painting the dirt road leading to the new farm in shades of soft gold. James carefully helped Diep step out of the house, moving as though even the smallest misstep might tire her again. A cool breeze drifted in from the distant fields, carrying the scent of dry grass and the gentle, earthy fragrance of harvest season in the countryside. The car rolled slowly up the small slope. Diep sat in the passenger seat, her slender hand resting on her lap, eyes gazing out the window at the trees swaying in the golden light. James glanced at her and smiled softly. "This road's a bit steep," he said. "When we get to the top, let me carry you." Diep chuckled, her voice weak but clear and bright. "I can walk just fine. If you try to carry me and we both slip, it'll be worse." They both laughed, their laughter light and easy, carried away by the wind, warming the fading day with quiet joy. When the car stopped in front of the gate, Diep froze for a moment, surprised. Before her stretched a wide clearing under construction, a small wooden house nestled in the valley, surrounded by a white fence and freshly tilled garden beds. The faint scent of new wood and paint filled the air. From a distance came the rhythmic sounds of hammers and saws, blending with the rustle of eucalyptus leaves in the breeze. James stepped out first, then turned to help her down. He held her hand firmly, guiding her along the newly laid stone path. "Look," he said, pointing toward a wooden frame being assembled. "That'll be the kitchen. Over there, a fireplace for the winter. And by that window, the sink. You'll be able to look out at your little vegetable garden while you cook." A smile spread across Diep's face, her eyes lighting up. In her mind, she could already picture it, the kitchen glowing with warm light, the aroma of baked bread drifting through the air, rows of green vegetables in the garden, and a few chickens wandering about the yard. In one corner, little Nee would be playing with a puppy, while James tended to the tomato pots nearby. It was simple, but it was home. Her voice trembled slightly as she turned to him. "See, James? This is all I've ever wanted. Nothing grand, nothing luxurious. Just a peaceful place, where the three of us can live together, hear Nee's laughter, and wake up every morning to quiet and warmth." James looked at her for a long time, his gaze tender, words caught somewhere behind his smile. He squeezed her hand, his tone deep and warm. "I just want you to get well. When you're truly healthy again, we'll start over, the three of us. We'll grow vegetables, raise chickens, tend the fish pond. Life doesn't need to be complicated. Having you and me, that's more than enough." Diep nodded softly, tears shimmering in her eyes under the golden light. She looked toward the unfinished wooden house, her heart filling with a rare stillness, a peace she hadn't felt in so long. After all the storms, after nights in hospital rooms and brushes with death, she was still here, standing beside the man she loved, looking toward a hopeful tomorrow. James wrapped his arms around her from behind. Together they watched the sun sink slowly behind the distant hills. The wind swept gently through the beams of the half-built house, the workers' voices grew faint as they packed up for the day. Though unfinished, the house already felt alive, already breathing with the warmth of family. And in that radiant sunset glow, surrounded by the scent of fresh wood and soft earth, James whispered, almost like a vow. "When this house is finished, I'll hang a sign by the door, with the names of the three of us. This will be our true home." Diep smiled, tears glistening. She rested her head on his shoulder as the world blurred in the twilight. Beyond the fading light, something new was beginning to shine in their hearts, a quiet, gentle future, filled with peace, warmth, and love. Against the pale orange glow of dusk, the shadows of two people stretched long across the porch of their new home. A breeze drifted in from the grapefruit garden, carrying the warm scent of earth and the gentle fragrance of blossoms mixed with the mist of the countryside, a scent that belonged only to rural life, peaceful and familiar. James and Diep stood side by side, quietly admiring the half-finished wooden house. Though it was still cluttered with tools and the smell of fresh paint lingered in the air, in their hearts, it was already home, a place filled with laughter, hope, and love. Ahead of them lay difficult choices, especially that of little Nee, a child torn between two families, between the place she was born and the place where she was loved. But for now, they simply wanted to hold on to the serenity of this rural evening, to listen to the rustling leaves, the gentle chirping of crickets, and to believe that no matter what came next, they would face it together. James took Diep's hand, his voice low and warm. "As long as there's love," he said, "anywhere can be home." Diep looked up, her eyes shimmering softly in the fading light. "Yes," she whispered, "with love, even the deepest loss can be healed." The evening wind swept through again, scattering a few white grapefruit petals into the air. They twirled lightly around the yard before settling quietly on the steps. In the distance, voices called out as workers packed their tools, echoing through the calm valley. The sun disappeared behind the bamboo grove, leaving a faint red sky melting into night. The small wooden house stood quietly in the valley, a silent witness to a new beginning. No matter what storms tomorrow might bring, in this moment, James and Diep could only smile, believing that happiness still existed, in the simplest, most ordinary things. And so, this episode closes here, leaving behind a lingering ache and reflection in the hearts of the audience. The decision awaiting little Nee, a child far too young to choose between two places she calls home, remains unresolved. The story is not yet over, for every choice carries both pain and hope. Stay tuned for the next episode, where James, Diep, and Nee must face the truth. Will love and compassion be strong enough to keep them together? Or will fate lead them down separate paths? Share your thoughts in the comments after watching. And don't forget to follow the series to continue this moving journey of James, Diep, and little Nee. A story of love, family, and the quiet strength that endures through every storm.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình đang hoàn thành những bước cuối cùng về edit video hôm nay và mình cũng đang cố gắng để nó hoàn thành sớm nhất có thể. Mình cũng muốn mang đến cho mọi người những video hay nhất, mới nhất và mình hy vọng rằng mọi người có thể ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn. Hôm nay thì cái sức khỏe của mình nó không được tốt, mọi người có thể thấy hôm nay mặt mình thì nhìn nó rất là nhợt nhạt vậy đấy. Mắt thì hai mắt nó bị sụp xuống luôn này, mọi người thấy mí mắt nó bị sụp xuống rất là mệt. Vì hôm nay sức khỏe mình không tốt nên là có lẽ là mình sẽ lên video chậm hơn dự định và cũng sẽ là mình chắc cũng chỉ lên được một kênh này thôi vì người nó mệt quá. Mình cũng cố gắng để làm mấy kênh kia nữa nhưng mà hôm nay mình mệt quá, mình nằm cả buổi chiều luôn. Bây giờ là 4 giờ chiều là mình mới dậy làm việc. Cảm ơn mọi người vì đã xem hết video. Tạm biệt.